It looks like the river of Epic 7 lore has begun flowing once again. Welcome back, my friends, to some more ongoing Epic 7 lore. Now, I'm just going to start by saying that these videos are going to be a little bit more scuffed, I think, from now on, just because I just don't have the time to be doing incredibly edited videos, because of, there's just not enough time to do so. So, we're still going to do tons of videos for you, tons of lore videos, but they're going to be a little bit more off the cuff, so I'll just be talking rather than having fully edited, scripted videos, okay? So let me just start off by saying the obvious, that Chapter 8's battlegrounds during the battles are absolutely stunning, with rich contrasts of color that really pop out of my phone screen. And, of course, probably even crisper on a big monitor, as many of you may be using. So just on aesthetics alone, I think this chapter knocks it right out of the park. Secondly, oh boy, was this an interesting chapter from a lore perspective. Now, as flashy as the last two Chapter 8s have been that we've experienced in Episode 1 and Episode 2, there have been such a sizable chunk of the chapters, even though sort of this one had more moral considerations to it amongst the characters, I really appreciated the touch of using the maze-like areas to a greater extent and having characters present and give their opinions on certain things, which gave, I think, a much more depth to the characters themselves. It was simply a nice little character development moment that we don't really see that much of, which is really cool to see. Okay, with that all out of the way, let's do a quick recap. I'll leave an annotation in the description for those of you that want to go straight to the theory crafting or, of course, want to save the recap for another time. So, let's get into some lore. So, unlike the last recap that spanned 7 chapters of information, the chapter recaps from now on will probably be a little bit more detailed and overall, hopefully, a little shorter. This chapter concentrates all of the juicy details at the very end, so I'll try and get there as fast as I can. To begin with, our heroes Ras, Mercedes, Archie, Schneel, Tywin, Roman, and Edda are discussing their next plan of action. Ras is concerned with the Crimson Ore that Edda apparently used to destroy the city that once stood where the Spire stands now. Edda explains that she buried the Crimson Ore away in the Lone Tundra, and they decide to set off to collect it. Schneel agrees, at Roman's behest, to let Edda go with Ras, even though she has had such a destructive past. As they arrive in the Lone Tundra, everyone is confident that Ras is lost, and that they may be wandering around the cold in circles. Eventually, they coincidentally run into Chu again, who leads them back to her home where her mother bakes them some pie. Mercedes attempts to make Edda feel more comfortable with them, but ends up kind of doing the opposite as Edda shies away, having lost the social skills to interact with people in a normal manner. As they travel deeper into the Lone Tundra, they spot a castle looming in the distance, made of ice. Edda comments that she does not remember a castle ever being here the last time she was there, but that was probably like 100 years ago. When they approach, a voice calls out to them and asks them 2 questions. Chu mentions the Lone Tundra is home to an ice princess from a fairy tale, and Ras asks Chu to tell him the story because the story might have something to do with the questions. The questions are, where does happiness come from, and what do you think love is? Edda somehow gets all of the questions correct, and I'll let you go through the story yourself to find out what her answer was, as well as what the answers of the other characters were. Great character development at this point in the story. Edda, while I was saying, Edda somehow gets all the questions right and prompts her to remember who the Ice Princess really is. Edda and Chu's friends, Cream and Pastry, I believe their names are, stay outside as Edda has a bad feeling and does not want to enter the castle at this point in time. Ras decides to give her some space that she wants, and so the others leave for the castle. They enter the castle, and the Ice Princess is revealed to be Solitaria of the Snow, who immediately asks Ras to be her Prince Charming, to which Ras calmly declines, much to Archie and Mercedes' enjoyment. Ras asks Solitaria if she can help them find the Crimson Ore that Edda had hidden somewhere near the castle. Meanwhile, Edda is ambushed by the 3 automatic dolls led by Commander Model Laika. In exchange to let Chu's friends go, Edda is willingly captured by them and leads them to where she buried the Crimson Ore. Apparently, Bellion is also looking for the ore because it holds some power to enact Politis' original plan, as is Bellion's directive existence. While looking for the ore, Kana is sent off to deal with Ras and the others, and Brynus and Laika have a conversation about their existence as dolls. Brynus reveals to Laika that she engaged with Ras at Wintenberg, but let him go. She also mentioned about a hacking attempt that happened not too long ago where the hacker was able to get a hold of a document containing notes from Policia's creator, Politis, and how Bellion's motives do not appear to be fully in line with what Politis wanted. Laika reprimands her for her emotions, but begins to doubt her own steadfastness in her mission. Edda appears after Brynus is dismissed and tells Laika that she overheard them talking about Politis. She explains how Edda knew Politis from a long time ago and feels guilt that she was not able to protect Politis at the moment of her death. This all happened at the hands of Bellion. Commander Laika is forced to contemplate what this new information means, but is interrupted when Ras and the others barge in with Kana as their prisoner. Laika uses the opportunity to ask Ras why he is so confident in what he is doing to oppose Bellion, and Ras explains how he's not confident in the outcome, but he's confident in who he is and what he understands to be right. This pushes him to keep moving forward rather than sit and do nothing. His experiences having done the wrong thing over and over again throughout the Archdemon War, rather than understand the people around him, has brought him to a place where he is no longer concerned with controlling outcomes, but rather doing the right thing in the moment that will ultimately lead to a good outcome. He expresses that outcomes are the results of an action, not the cause of the action itself. Laika thinks this on, and decides that it is time to retreat. She strikes a deal to give Edda back if Ras would let them leave, and he agrees to end the fighting. Finally, Solitaria reveals that she gave the Crimson Ore to Chu, who then says that she gave it to Ervelyn back in Chapter 1, if we remember from all the way back then. We flash over to a conversation between Luna and Ervelyn, where they discuss the whereabouts of the Dragon Insignia, which is another ore that appears to have similar attributes to Edda's Crimson one. This meteorite that landed in Policia appears to have housed Twig, and a piece of it was given to the Spire for research where Edda encountered it. Now, all they need is the Dragon Insignia in Wintenberg, and they will have everything that they need for their plan. Our heroes return to the Spire, where Schneel, Tywin, and Roman are awaiting their return. Schneel concludes from their findings that the war in Eurica is being manufactured in order for the 3 nations to achieve their own means. Ilinev can get revenge, Ervelyn can gain political status, and Bellion can gain power, enough to raise an army to attack the Sanctuary, as she believes that Politis' goal was to destroy the fragment hidden underneath buried in the planet. Ras mentions how he remembers Politis when he first came to Orbis. She was part of a research team that came to investigate the Sanctuary. He is also concerned because he is now aware that Twig's power appears to be entrenched in the politics of Eurica, having touched so many parts of the country already. Twig is a higher being that can interact with and act through the meteorites, kind of like a conduit. When the 3 automatic dolls return to Policia, Bellion is displeased that Laika has become defective, having not carried out her objectives. She decommissions her because of her disloyalty, and Brynus and Kana are forced to watch as their commander is destroyed, possibly even down to her motherboard chip, the piece that makes Laika who she is. Still, Laika contemplates whether or not she did the right thing. And this marks the end of Chapter 8. So, I'm not going to label myself as a prophet, but for those of you who watched my Chapter 7 lore video, I think I was pretty spot on when I said that it would be very interesting if Bellion had killed Politis. Now that we have confirmation of this, we can go a little further with the theory. How about that? So I'm seeing a very similar comparison here between young Chloe and Bellion, where young Chloe, due to her infancy and misunderstanding of Politis' emotional outbursts, simply locked Politis up when she did not act according to the specifications of the specifications that Politis herself created, right? Politis was not acting in the most logical way, even though she was expecting this of Chloe. But then Chloe is also an AI, so maybe you would expect that. I believe that because Chloe had emotions of her own, she gave Politis mercy by simply removing her from situations that made her emotional. Bellion, on the other hand, having no emotions at all, I think would resort to much more drastic measures. The irony here is palpable. And with the destruction of Commander Model Laika, we can begin to piece together what may have happened to Politis. I think that Politis' true plan was to travel down to Britannia to the sanctuary in order to maybe work with Ras and inform him that whatever it was buried underneath the sanctuary was going to attract celestial dangers. However, before she could gather the resources to make the trip, Lunaris may have erected the barrier around Britannia to protect the rest of the world from the Archdemon's rampage. As a result, Politis was forced to take matters into her own hands. Ras recalls Politis telling him that he cannot simply keep fighting over and over again, and he had interpreted that as fighting the Archdemon. But what she actually may have meant was fighting continual celestial attacks, so long as the fragment remained part of Orbis's core. With the barrier erected, Politis was forced to prepare herself and her city for the mentioned attacks. She may have instructed Bellion with the fortification of the city of Policia. I believe the misinterpretation on Bellion's part came as Politis was explaining her plan, and Bellion may have suggested destroying the fragment, as that would eliminate the threat that Orbis faced, because the Celestials would no longer care about the planet anymore. Politis, who knows what the fragment is because there was one on Paradia, may have had an outburst, causing Bellion to conclude that Politis was far too emotional and could get in the way of the mission she was created to do, which was protect the city and, of course, protect the planet. I believe that Politis may have become incredibly emotionally charged during an exchange with a logic-focused, calculated Bellion, for only relying on rational objectives, even though it was Politis herself that blamed Chloe for not being calculated enough and too emotional to be a city administrator. In doing so, Bellion may have eventually perceived Politis as a threat to her own objectives, and since, to Bellion, objectives and logic is everything, she removed Politis from the equation and continued onward towards achieving the goal that Politis had set. Bellion was going to protect the world of Orbis by destroying the thing that was putting a target on Orbis's back. And of course, she still is. It appears to me that Ras has confirmed in this chapter that he knows who Twig is. This is quite a big development, considering many people have been postulating that Twig was part of Fastus, or that Fastus had dropped Comet's eyes into Eureka, and these ores were simply Fastus's Comet's eyes. Which I was under the impression that those things were just observational tools for Fastus that he set up in each city in Sidonia in order to sort of spy on the city and keep tabs on them. But I think that in this case, these are not Comet's eyes, because there hasn't really been any mention of something like this in each of the cities. The possibility that Twig is another such entity apart from Fastus opens up a whole new avenue of exploration that I'm definitely excited for, and I hope that you are too. Now the question is how Ras knows who Twig is. If anyone knows where in the story, a lot of people on Reddit are saying that there's dialogue where Ras mentions Twig, like early in the game. I don't know where this is, and I would love to know it. I may be misinterpreting his dialogue as giving off a feel that he has known Twig for a long time, or maybe what I also want to do is play on the idea that Twig's name is a mistranslation of twig, as in a part of a tree, as in the world tree, maybe. Who knows? I've also read elsewhere on Reddit that Twig is an entity buried near the sanctuary, and that these meteorites are fragments of the hole that landed elsewhere on the planet. Regardless of this, it's nice to finally get some confirmation that there's another baddie out there for Ras and his companions to have to deal with. Fastus, at this point in time, is chilling in a rock, or as he calls it, the incarnation of destruction, in Ainz' possession. I wonder what possibilities there are for that plotline. I'm gonna go out on a complete limb here and hope for an Ainz and Tamarin side story, where Fastus is given to Tamarin by Ainz, who is completely infatuated by her and her music, and we end up with an evil ML Tamarin. Fastus Tamarin, anyone? Dark Star Tamarin? I can just see it now. All the money just flooding in. But I digress. I'm looking forward to Chapter 9, where we will undoubtedly be concluding or further developing the stories of Luna, Ilyanev, Cecilia, and maybe even Senya, depending on how the Spears of Vengeance side story plays out that's coming out soon. Maybe we'll even see a cameo of Francesca as well, Cecilia's mother. Like I said, Chapter 9, I'm guessing, will be a heated chapter focused on revenge, considering both Luna and Ilyanev are both drowning in it. We may even see a bit of Ervalin, since he and Luna seem to come to some consensus at the end of Chapter 8. I speculate a fight for the Dragon Insignia, with Ras pulling out some sick diplomacy, as it seems to be his greatest weapon at this point. I'm hoping that Ras will also meet the spirit of Senya again, and hash out the truth behind the true conflict in Eureka, and how all of the countries' problems are all linked together. I believe it all lies with Senya, the first Dragon Knight. I implore you to go back to Chapter 4-9 and listen carefully to the conversation between Ras and the unfamiliar girl, who identifies herself as a conglomeration of all of the people who lived here. It is unclear if Senya's spirit has been gathering lost souls in Eureka since her possible death, but one thing is clear. Senya discovered some truth before she became a spirit, and I believe that Ras has yet to reveal this. Or Senya's spirit has yet to reveal to him what that truth is. Unfortunately, I do think that Senya is probably dead, but at the hands of Politis, I'm not so sure. Her spirit specifically says, "My body was scattered into the dirt long ago." So this is either referring to her personally, or the countless people who have died and become lost. Regardless, we will have to wait until Senya's side story comes out to discuss this further. I hope you enjoyed this recap and theory video as much as I enjoyed making it. Again, I'm going to be making these a little bit more scuffed. As you can hear, there are a lot of ums and ahs and little things here and there, but I think we'll get better as we go. I'm sure I've missed some details here and there, so do chime in by writing a comment below, and subscribe to the channel for more Epic 7 lore, and of course leave a like because it really helps get these videos out there. Anyway, I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, keep it real.